So this is Andre 3000's story. I was in Palomino Valley outside Reno, Nevada, taking pictures for the Las Vegas Tip Challenge. And I spotted this guy way in the back and he really caught my eye. And I was like, who is that? So I got his number, asked the BLM guys about him. They said, oh, he's going to ship next week to long-term holding. He's an 8-year-old, or at least an 8-year-old. They had just gathered him. And I was like, can I pull him for And they were kind of baffled. They didn't know why I wanted to pull such an old horse because they tend to be harder to train, and this particular herd tends to be harder to train. But I just couldn't get him out of my head. He kind of spoke to me. So they went ahead and stopped him from going to long-term holding, and Isidro drove up and we loaded him on the trailer and drove the 16 hours to our ranch in northern Arizona. And here Isidro is working with him. He'd already worked with him for probably about a week already. And you can just kind of see this horse is not the easiest horse. He's one of those ones where you have to kind of start over every time you go in his pen. And this is a really cool technique that Isidro has. He roped him like the first couple of days, and then after that, he just throws a rope over them and then loops it around their neck. And then they respond really softly to the pull. And then that way, it's not the same thing as roping them. And plus, it desensitizes them to having ropes around their head and neck. And then he gradually uses the rope to touch him with, and then uses his hand to touch him with. And then he can clip that lead rope onto the halter. We don't like to leave drag ropes on them very long if we have them on at all. No longer than a week, because it tends to cause a lot of rubs, makes them actually more dull to the halter. So he transitions to this method of catching them fairly quickly. And it's pretty simple. Just throw the rope over, loop it around, and then you can kind of get him to stand still. You can touch him, rub on him, and then clip that lead rope on so you can get some work done. And I left a lot of this sort of initial stuff in this video, even though it made the video kind of long, just to give people an idea of some things they can do if they're having one of these really kind of reactive, flighty Mustangs they have to work with. And just to let you know that we do have to do things over and over and over again, and it almost seems like you're never getting anywhere. And some of these horses, that's just normal. Just keep at it. Keep going in there every day, several times a day, little short sessions. Just keep doing it. And that's what really, really, really works. So he'd already been working with this horse, like I said, like probably at least a week, maybe two. And this is as far as he had gotten. And most of them, he gets further along a lot faster. And this particular horse, we ended up doing the full 90 days of tip training on him to get him good enough that we felt that he was safe enough that he could be tipped out. And the lady who ended up adopting him, because he is a straight-up adoption, he's not a sale authority horse. The lady who ended up adopting him put him in training with us from about September until January when we went to the Fort Worth Makeover. And she just happens to live near the Fort Worth Makeover, Texas. So we took him with us there, and you can see later on in this video that we do that. And then whatever you do on one side, you do on the other side. And he was really, really funny about his face being touched for a long time. And you can see Isidro just kind of works up to it. He'll touch him on the shoulder and the neck, and then kind of work up to the face and then back. He was much more comfortable. And it just depends on the horse that you're working with. Some are better if you touch their face first, and others are better if you touch their shoulder or wither or neck first. Just kind of let the horse tell you what they want. And then typically they are better on the left side and worse on the right side. But you got to do everything equally on both sides. So sorry for the long clip here, but I just wanted to give people that are, trying to work with their first Mustang or trying to work with a difficult Mustang kind of an idea of what you can do and what it looks like. And these are just clips from many sessions. And this is another one of Isidro's techniques that he loves. He uses this sort of burlap sack thingy because it's scary looking, but it's not a too crazy color, and it also doesn't make any noise, or not hardly any noise. So you're just dealing with a scary object without those other things involved. And so I can't recommend this enough. It's like your first scary object before a flag or anything like that to introduce a horse to. Because once you swing it over them like that and they, realize it doesn't hurt and it actually kind of feels good when you rub them on it, they are much more receptive later to scary things and scary objects. And so it's kind of a good technique. It's light, it's easy to use. So here he is. This is very early on, beginning teaching him how to lunge or go around him. We call it groundwork. I don't really like the word lunging, but that's what most people understand. And you can just see he's just really soft about it. He's just driving him a little bit. You don't see, it's no crazy flag happening. He's using that first cue. He kind of points him, and then you see how quickly he drops his hand down. He pushes him a little with the flag, and he's just showing him what he's after. And then he asks him to stop there. And always good to desensitize and use whatever tool you are to drive to desensitize them to it as well. And so they're not afraid of that tool. You have to do both things. And then you can see he uses the rope to initially start touching him. And he's still at that stage where he'll use the rope to touch him with the rope because he's okay with the rope. And then eventually his hand is a part of the rope, and then his hand is touching him. And that's another good technique to use. And he's kind of like, huddled in the corner here. He's not really showing anything threatening, but you do have to be really careful when you have a horse in the corner. He feels safe next to that fence, and Cedro's kind of respecting that. But at the same time, he could be really defensive in the corner, and you have to make sure you have an out. So I don't know if you see here, he's trying a different technique of going up over the top of his head to touch his forehead instead of coming from the front. And he seemed to like that better. The horse did. So you have to just kind of try and change things to whatever horse you're working with. They kind of tell you what they're okay with and what they're not. But at the same time, you can't let them train you to never get, to be touching them in different places, because they will train you not to do things. So there's a balance there of pushing them enough to get what you need done, and not pushing them too hard that they become afraid or really uncomfortable. Just showing them that what you're doing, even though they're uncomfortable, you're not going to hurt them. And that builds a lot of trust. And something else Isidro does a lot of during these sessions, and I show it right here, is he'll mess with them like this, and then he'll step away and just sit there and let them have a break for a while. And he does that a lot. And that is so important. You can't just be pressure every time you're with that horse, or they're going to not want to be with you. So he'll just sit there and stand there after that. It's great. Okay, so this is a really good example of, like, this horse has already been worked with probably well into the second month now, and he's still that hard to catch. I mean, he's not anymore, but just to let you know that sometimes you really have to start over. You start where that horse is at for the day. And so Citadel's, knows that he can catch him. You can see he's not wearing a halter anymore. And you kind of have to start over sometimes. Sometimes they don't always retain, but they will come around quicker each and every time. And so you just see with the Citadel's energy, he doesn't make a big deal about it. He's not chasing him around. He's not doing anything like that because he didn't want to come. He's respecting that he's just afraid. And you could see how easily he haltered him, because the horse is responding to his energy. He's not being like upset that, I caught you, every day for the past week. Why can't I catch you right now? I'm going to make you run around. Because then you're just reinforcing, that, the right answer was for them to run away from you. So until you have a significant amount of draw on a horse, chasing them around, I think, is not the way to go. At least it hasn't been in our experience. And here he is learning how to tie. This isn't his first time that he tied, but this is kind of funny, where sometimes just changing hands is enough to kind of set them off. And you see here, I mean, I can imagine a non-horse person or even a non-Mustang person watching us train, because you can see that he's like, okay, I'm just going to sit here and swing my arms back and forth, just working on. He's like, okay, found a problem. Now I got to fix it. So he's switching hands here. And I've had Mustangs that you can switch hands, they could care less, and others, that's like the biggest deal ever. So that seemed to be a big deal for Andre, and he just kept switching hands. So you gotta work with whatever issue you have, even if you wanted to work with something else. And he just did a lot of this sort of touching and rubbing him. And there's a big, we wanted to know how tall this little guy was, because he's pretty stout. He has no problem carrying a grown man. But he's a pony, so he technically is a pony. I missed what it said on there. Would it say he was like 13.1 maybe? But he's a stout little dude. Looks like a little mini Clydesdale. And here he is, finally, I think this is 3 months, finally is meeting his tip requirements. It took that long on this little guy, and sometimes it does. I just figured he was worth it. And the sitter can pick up his feet. He's standing tied pretty darn good. You could see he's still kind of wary and super watchful. This was a horse that lived, he's somewhere between 8 and 12 years. So the teeth were older. BLM said he was 8. He's maybe 9 now. And who lived in the wild as a stallion for that long. So he's got a lot of behaviors that protected him that he has to relearn. And so we just respect that. So this is how a sitter works with every horse he trains on the trailer. He first loads them and then turns them around and walks them out, and does that a few times. And then he will load them and then back them out. We expect our horses to be able to do both. And he has found if you turn them around and walk them out first, then you don't have those horses that kind of fly back and because they're thinking, I'm going to turn around. And then after doing it both ways for a while, then they just kind of wait on you because they have no idea what they're going to be doing. Are they supposed to turn around? Are they supposed to back up? But it really stops those horses in the beginning from blowing backward out of the trailer. And he's now moved up to, he's, out of the tip program, the trainer incentive program. I'll put a link below if you want to learn more about that. And he is starting his saddle training. And so as Citro is working him, he always starts with this little bareback pad and just flipping it over him. And I know it's backward. He doesn't really care. He's just using it to desensitize him. And actually, I think he's a little more strategic than that because he doesn't want that cinch thingy to, hit him in the flake accidentally. And this horse had a lot of little explosions like that in the beginning. But what's nice is if you do the training good in the beginning, you could see he stopped him really easily because he could have spun and kicked him, but he stopped him really easily because he learned to be very responsive to that halter. So he was able to stop the behavior before it escalated. And that's excellent. If you have that on board, you can, go work through a lot of problems. And he's lunging pretty good now. He's got a nice little bend in him. He's got this cute little trot. So now I think this was like his first saddling, and he was pretty uneventful. He worked really, really well with his saddles. The issue, of course, was trying to find one that fit his little pony back. But overall, he did really, really good for saddling. What's really cool about these Mustangs is they're so observant. It's so fun to train them because they learn things so fast, and you can make little cues and little movements, and they're so focused and paying attention that they really listen. And he has graduated out of the bullpen. He's in our outdoor round pen here. It's kind of a nice transition to the arena because he can see all the big open spaces, but yet we're still in a kind of controlled environment. And believe it or not, Isidro says he's extremely smooth to ride. He looks like he could be bouncy because he's got such an expressive trot. But he says he's really, really smooth to ride, so I'll take his word for it because I've never ridden him. Not a big loper. He does lope, but he's not a big loper. He does, when he finishes under saddle training, he does walk, trot, and lope, no problem. And then here Isidro, before he rides him with the saddle, he was working on just hopping up and getting down bareback quite a bit. Just really rubbing him all over so that once he does get his foot in the stirrup and his leg over, if he starts touching him somewhere, it's not a new thing. So any way that you can break something down to prep a horse to make the next step easier and less traumatic and less chance of an explosion or them getting hurt or you getting hurt, go for it. I think the smaller steps you can break it in and make it good, even the better. So he's really just working on him carrying his weight and then also being touched on the other side. And he has his head turned to him because he doesn't want, the horse, if he sort of takes off, he wants that butt to go away from him, not into him, to make it, better or easier, safer for him to not get kicked. And see here, he's doing that where he's touching on the offside from where he's standing. And he's patting him. Patting is great. Highly recommend doing it. It's great for desensitizing horses. You could feel where they're tense. And we did lay him down. He laid him down quite a few times. And that was never an issue. He would just lay right down. He had no problem laying down in our presence, which was kind of fascinating. So that was never an issue for him. And just given this horse's age and kind of how reactive and spooky he was, we thought laying down might be good for him. But he kind of showed us that he was fine with that. So that kind of taught us that we were on the right track with his training. So Isidro does this a lot, and he'll get up, get down, get up, get down, get up, sit, and then get off and walk away. And then get up, get down, same thing, and then get off and walk away. And that just keeps them kind of thinking forward and not getting their feet stuck as much, and also letting them know really that them kind of standing there and letting you do that was the right answer. And he looks kind of funny on this little pony. He's so tall. And this was his first ride, and it was great, and he was ready for it and super happy with, how that went. He was never much of a bucker or anything like that. I think by this point he started to really trust. And here he is in our outdoor arena doesn't have a fence yet, so it's just kind of a leveled area with no fence out in this massive pasture. So if your horse is not ready, they could take off with you, and I guess you could just hold on for dear life because there's not a whole lot of anywhere to stop him. But this little guy, he was just fine with it. He was totally ready for it by the time he got out there. And this is something else, though I put this in this video, is I want you to see how long Isidro sits there when he mounts. I don't know if you noticed, if you watch our Player's Choice video, both of our horses stood perfectly still when we got off and then got back on. And this is why, just simply doing that. Every session, you get on and you sit there for a little while. You do not walk off right away. And if you do that every time, you will have a horse that will stand there quiet and will not walk off on you. It doesn't take much time to do it, and it's totally worth it. And he did quite a bit of trail riding with Andre. He took him out here. He didn't call him Andre. He calls him 3000 in Spanish, which I thought was adorable. He calls him 3000. And he was great. He loved the trail. He would go out there by himself or with somebody else, and he was awesome.
Well, here we are, living in the moment. And here we are, dreaming in the open. Now look around, isn't this a new day? Make a move, doing things a new way. A new way. 'Cause this is our world, and this is our time. These are our plans, we're gonna let them shine. This is our place in the human race, and we won't stop dreaming. No, we won't stop dreaming. Look ahead, we can see forever. You and me doing it together. Light it up, we can be a million stars. Look at us, don't you see we've come so far? Yeah, we've come so far. 'Cause this is our world, and this is our time. And these are our plans, we're gonna let them shine. This is our place in the human